Bonjour. Are we good?
Yeah, you have to start now.
Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session. It is entitled, as you know, Why Tech4Good is a Winning Business Strategy for French Entrepreneurs. My name is Philippe. I am the moderator for today and also the CEO of Public, a social impact agency working across North America. The panelists today, we have three great panelists. And I'm going to ask them in a moment to introduce themselves, but just so you know who we have Alexandre, who's the founder and CEO of Epic and Blisce. We have Lucie Basch, who's the co-founder and chief global expansion officer for Too Good to Go. And we have Zafimehy, who's the founder and CEO of WhatRocks. And so welcome to the three of you. Excited to have this discussion with all of you for a topic that I feel very passionate about. I wanted to set the context for everybody who is listening and who will be asking questions today. And then I want to start with some questions for all of you. But the context for this sort of question and statement around why Tech4Good is a winning business strategy for French entrepreneurs is that there is a transformation happening in society. And some might even call it a revolution. And it's really around the reshaping of capitalism, right? Whether you call it stakeholder capitalism, as we're all familiar with, we call it profit with purpose, conscious capitalism, shared value. Whether, despite the kind of language we might use, it's all around this growing expectation that companies will play in terms of societal benefit. And not from the sort of traditional thinking about how you do good as a good corporate citizen, but much more so a growing expectation amongst consumers and employees and other stakeholders that companies have an important role to play in solving societal challenges, but in a way that will also directly benefit their business. And it's within that context that there is this sort of growing spotlight on tech. And if anyone has seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, you will know in watching that sort of with both fascination and sort of horror, the both intended and unintended consequences of technology on our society. There is so much happening in technology that is advancing our world in incredible ways, but it's also having some negative impacts. And so it's within that context that we think about this growing expectation of consumers and employees in thinking about doing good. And so we come to you today to talk with our three panelists, with Alexandre, Lucie, and Njara, around what is the role for tech, right? And there's this assumption that it is quite good. I would argue that it's essential for every French tech entrepreneur to build their business in a way that also creates societal benefit. But I think we'll find out what our panelists think in a moment. So I'd love to open it up to all three of you to start, and then I'm going to ask specific questions of each of you. But I'd love in this context to ask each of you to first just talk a little bit about the work that you do, and then if you could sort of address why you are personally motivated to do good and what responsibility you think French tech entrepreneurs have in creating positive societal benefit. So if you could give us a little bit of context and talk about what motivated you and what responsibility you think they have and why, that would be terrific. And so maybe Alexandre, I can start with you and we'll go and get each of you. And then I'm going to ask, as I say, specific questions to keep building on our discussion.
Oh, wow. Okay. Happy to start. Thank you, Philippe. And very happy being with three entrepreneurs. As you mentioned, Philippe, you are yourself an entrepreneur, not only just the host of this panel, and Lucie, such an amazing entrepreneur, and Njara as well. So it's interesting, the tech, and we had this discussion in the past. Is not only French entrepreneurs are just going to build businesses with purpose. I think it's every kind of entrepreneur now. If they want to be more successful, they need to embed more and more purpose in their work. So I don't want to bother too many people introducing myself. I'm just an entrepreneur, but even more importantly, I'm an engaged citizen. I think that's the big difference between, or maybe that's a link between all of us and most people who are just listening today. We are activists. Whatever we do, we understand that the connection with purpose has to be there. I'm not an entrepreneur just selling products or services. Even if I'm selling something, I'm trying to find something positive out of this. and I'm sure just Zara and Lucie will explain what they do, but it's very similar. So on one end, I've built this non-profit platform called Epic, and our goal is really to provide solutions, because that's at the end what we do. Entrepreneurs, and in the French tech, if it's not the French tech, it's the tech for good. We build solutions because you cannot only go after people asking them to do things if they don't have something helping them to do that. So that's why Epic is a nonprofit. We connect very smart social entrepreneurs with people who want to give more, who want to donate more, who want to be more active. That's the platform we have been building over the last 6 years at Epic. It's cross countries. The HQ is in New York, but we are also very strong in Europe. And the other structure, and you mentioned it earlier, Philippe, I'm also the CEO of Blisce, and Blisce is a venture fund, but a very specific venture fund. It's not an impact fund per se, because I do think we are the right impact fund, because most of the time when we are listening to impact fund, they're saying we won't just give back, or the returns won't be as good as other funds, but we'll do good. We're just saying the opposite, is because we'll be able to back amazing mission-driven entrepreneurs. Our results will be through the roof. In the last 6 years we're doing this, we have a net IRR per year of almost 40%. So we are able to prove, and that's what we see about finance. Finance could be and has to be a force of good. The Wolf of Wall Street has to be, I won't say killed, but has to disappear at the very least. And we should showcase that you can run a venture fund, a PE firm, an asset management firm with that kind of spirit. And that's really who I am. Whatever I'm doing, I'm always thinking, how can we have this impact on other people? Because as we all know, a lot of people are suffering, even more this year than last year. So I can everything we do to help them.
That's great. Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to some of the things you were saying in this discussion. Zara, let me come to you and tell us a little bit about WhatRocks, and then this sort of question about what was your personal motivation? We just heard from Alexandre. What drove you to be a French tech entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm the founder and CEO of WhatRocks. So in a nutshell, WhatRocks is the Ads for Good label. It's that basically rewards users online when they see or click on WhatRocks labeled ads. Well, they would get money from these advertisers, from these brands, and thanks to this money, they would make donations to the charities that are available in their WhatRocks mobile wallet. So what we're trying to achieve is to demonstrate that there is a way for big brands, for advertisers, to create positive impact by funding charities thanks to their advertising dollars. And this comes in a context where, just to give you some numbers, the global digital advertising industry is about $400 billion. And just to reckon how powerful this industry is, just consider that 70% of this business is owned by Facebook, Instagram, and Google, including YouTube. So because these are juggernauts, you know how powerful this industry is. So there's a lot of money in digital advertising. Unfortunately, none of these advertising dollars are currently creating positive impact for society or for the environment. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to show the way that through technology, you have ways to empower online users when they see or click on these ads online, and they can then make donations to the causes that they care about. And to speak to the second part of your question, and it echoes Alexandre's introduction. To me, a tech-for-good entrepreneur has a very specific mindset, and I'm sure that Lucie will share this point of view. It's really about what keeps you up at night. And if what keeps you up at night is only profits and your shareholders and your investors, blah, 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 and your sales, you're not a tech-for-good entrepreneur. If you're a tech-for-good entrepreneur, what keeps you up at night is, how do I combine profit and purpose? How do I make sure that I reconcile the left side of my brain with the right side of my brain? And essentially, if I were to define what Tech4Good is, I would argue that it's about solving social and environmental problems through technology. And what you need to consider in this definition is two things. One, who's my target? Very much from a business perspective. Am I serving regular customers, or am I serving underprivileged or at-risk populations or ecosystems, right? And second of all, what are the KPIs to measure that I am creating the impact that I'm trying to do? So that's how I came up with this vision around how do we create positive impact and contribute to the funding of charities, because there is these advertising dollars that we all know are being spent anyways by these big brands, and this is actually very interesting to your earlier point around this revolution, this market revolution, or I would call it a market shift, but yeah, essentially that's the same thing. It's previously consumers used to hold brands accountable for their negative impact on society or on the environment. So typically, that would push these businesses to limit their carbon footprint, to limit the use of single-use plastic packaging, et cetera, et cetera. And today, we argue that consumers are also holding brands accountable for their positive impact, challenging brands on, okay, how do you do more good to society? Is great that you're doing less harm, but now how do you do more good to society? And historically, it was all around corporate giving and skill-based sponsoring, et cetera. But that's broken records, if you will. And consumers would also argue that there's a lot around the greenwashing or purpose washing in this kind of CSR programs. So that's why we had to come up with an innovative solution that creates social value and that is a clear and concrete example and proof of the brand's commitment to society.
Great. We're going to come back to some of the things you mentioned, including how we define tech for good in a moment. But Lucie, I'd love to get you in on this, especially because you've created a business, Too Good to Go, that goes right at this idea. So tell us a little bit more about the business, and also what was your personal motivation here, and how, as I asked, what's that kind of role for French tech entrepreneurs in thinking about societal benefit?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Really nice to be together with you today. So I mean, the whole belief and passion behind Too Good to Go is that companies today should be created to leave a positive impact to society. So I personally started my career in Nestlé, a huge global food manufacturer. And that's where I realized the way we do food today, and the fact that throwing away part of it is definitely part of the process now. Today on the planet, we throw away a third of what we produce, and that just felt totally wrong to me. And I'm a pretty passionate person, so when I do things, I do them 200%, and putting all my energy and my time on developing and growing a food system that I didn't believe was right became quickly impossible. So I quit my job, and I really thought about how can we make everyone a part of the solution. And really today with technologies, we managed to give a lot of space to our horizontal power. So the horizontal power is the fact that when all of us, we act at our own scale, all of those actions put next to each other can actually make a massive impact. And when we are used to vertical power, meaning we need to wait for the government and the powerful people in the world to make a difference, today, in a way, we can all be responsible of making a change and making a difference. So that's the idea of Too Good to Go. How do we make everyone an important player into building a planet where every food produced is actually consumed? It seems pretty simple, but we're actually far from it today. And so that's why we created Too Good to Go, with the mission of really inspiring and empowering everyone to fight food waste together. So the way it works is a simple solution. We created a marketplace, an app, where every store that might have leftover at the end of the day is connected to a user, a person like you and me, who is going to pay a small price on the app and come at the end of the day to get all the food that would have been thrown away. So it's really about building win-win collaboration when stores have simple solutions not to throw away food anymore, and where everyone can actually make a difference by picking up a bag at the end of the day. And when building this, we thought about today in our world, probably the fastest way of having an impact is through a company and a business model. If we want to create jobs, if we want to launch in several countries, we need to be able to rely on a strong business model. And actually, when you reduce food waste, you create value. So it was a pretty much of a no-brainer for us to create a business model to support our cause. Because for every bag we save on the platform, we take a fixed commission fee and we send the rest to the store owner. So out of the value we create, Too Good To Go can grow a revenue which is totally aligned with our environmental interests. And the main KPI for the company started and stayed all the way as the number of meals we save every day. And I think that's really important because this is what we, every morning I wake up and the first number I check is how many meals did we actually save yesterday. So after 5 years, we now saved more than 50 million meals and prevented them from going to trash. And today it's more than 130,000 meals we save every day in 15 different countries. And we grew a company of more than 750 employees, which we called Waste Warriors, waking up every day to fight food waste. So I believe for me, it's really important that we force ourselves to create more and more companies like this, where the responsibility is first to make a difference and to leave a positive impact, and where we use the business model to enable us to grow the impact as fast as possible.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I want to ask, so let me just go back to, with each of you, if a cynic was listening to this conversation, or maybe a skeptic, they might say, well, sure, but look at Lucie, she started a business, reducing food waste, and Alexandre with Epic and Blisce, and Njara with WhatRocks, and you care deeply about the social impact, and you're doing it through business. But I've got a business to run, and I'm not sure how I embed the societal benefit, right? The technology for good in it. So, how would each of you respond to that? How important is leadership to this? Because I think there's a presumption in this panel that we're saying this is part of how you do business, but there's still some people who would say, well, I need to just run my business and then I can do some good on the side, as opposed to bringing those two things together, right? And I started by saying there's a shift happening. So how do you combat that? How important is leadership to this? And what is the argument that you make to somebody who says, well, it's great that you're motivated this way, but I'm trying to expand my business into North America from France or other parts of Europe, and I'll get to that later. What's the argument to make to them that, no, you need to do this now because it's actually part of how businesses are starting to operate? What would you say to that? I mean, and that's sort of an open question. I don't know if Lucie, you want to jump in, or Alexandre, please. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on this.
I don't know, Lucie, if you want to start. So if I have one answer, is Darwin. I think Darwinism is the best answer. And I do agree with you, Philippe. And many of them, we can say it's not now, it's tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Some people like Lucie and Njara, and I know them very well, it's embedded in who they are. So they don't have to be forced, they don't have to be pushed. It's just the other way around. Right. It's hard just to follow them and to follow their lead. But for some people, it's true. They will always find something else before doing it. And it's true. So what we see, it's Darwin. Darwin explained the following, and as we all know, the species will survive are the ones who are able to adapt themselves. What does that mean? It means that if you still want to recruit, and Lucie can talk hours and hours about this, when they are recruiting someone Too Good To Go, it's so easy. Why? Because people want to work for that kind of businesses. In terms of clients, the fact that the clients of today, if you were asking around you, do you know Too Good To Go? People in Europe will say yes, and they will have their eyes sparkling because they love their product. And we see same with Njara when we were discussing about the brands who need to have something else to give to their clients. So we see the world where it's not because everyone is 100% pure. I'm not pure, and I'm not saying that you have to be pure. But if you really want to address the market, if you want to understand well supply and demand, you have no other choice. It's not even in 2 or 3 years. If you don't do it now, you will become the next Nokia or the next Kodak, but not for tech reasons, because you haven't seen this purpose. So what we see, and I will just leave the floor after to Zara and Lucie, but what we're doing, at least on our side of Blisce, we are asking and we are imposing clauses. So if you say we take B Corp, so Blisce is the first B Corp growth fund in US, Europe. So what we are asking when we back an entrepreneur, we are asking them if they're not B Corp yet, to do the evaluation and to be clear about the improvements of this evaluation to become potentially a certified B Corp. And for us, is not if you don't share this vision, we won't back you. Maybe you find other funders, but won't be with us. I'm giving you another example with diversity. We are talking about this more and more, this D&I, diversity and inclusion. What we're asking is to all the entrepreneurs we're backing is at least to have in the finalists, in whoever they are recruiting, to have people underrepresented. So it could be gender, it could be ethnic, it could be socially, but that's important to us. And it's not something we're saying, oh, maybe 2 years ago it would be good. It's if you want us to be involved, we need to share the same philosophy. And that's interesting. And doing so and having great results at Blisce, we're pushing other people, other funds, other LPs to think that way. Because that's the only way I think today. But the very start is Darwin is helping us a ton.
Right. It's super interesting. And I know from my own business, for so long, we kept saying, don't think of doing good as a nice to do, think of it as a need to do. But that was a very hard argument to make in 2008 and 2010 and 2012. What I hear you saying, Alexandre, is now with Darwinian theory, now if you don't do it, you are going to fall behind, right?
But
that's the argument.
Philippe, it's as an entrepreneur, and we're all entrepreneurs here. You cannot be right too early. It's never too early or too late. And 2008 was way too early. It's now. It's now, and you will just be out of business, and that's I'm sure. Because if you mentioned the Ecosia, Lilo, Too Good To Go, you have Aspiration in the US, Good Money in the US, WhatRocks. You have more and more startups who are just being able to be super strong and super successful because they do good.
Right. So Lucie, for you, I'm sure you probably agree with Alexandre, but from your perspective, and when you encounter resistance, when people are skeptical or cynical about what you're trying to do, or maybe they're not, but how do you respond to that? And what's your argument to them about saying, no, we have to bring these two worlds together?
So I would fully reinforce what Alexandre just said. For me, it became the new rules of the game. Now you have to do things in the right way, and in the same way that we implemented safety measures at some point. Now you just need to stop throwing food away when you have a food business. So it's all those stuff of environmental measures or social measures or everything that we feel we can't accept as human beings. Then we should make sure that we create companies that change that and make a better society on the wide scale. And then it's just about the people who are in control of those companies or the people who create those companies. They need to find a way to align all interests. So I think food waste is a really easy example of showing that you can align environmental impact together with a strong business model. But I think you can really, if you ask yourself, you can always find ways. And I truly believe that, we managed to, so many businesses faced huge crises and they managed to survive them. This is another big thing that now needs to be handled. And whatever company you are, you can find ways to refine the way you do things to address them better. And if you don't do it today, when is it still time? I don't know, but if you don't start today, then you won't survive tomorrow. And as Alexandre said, I mean, you won't be in business anymore in 20 years because the rules of the game have changed, and we all need to understand that and make a move straight away. So I think for me, it's rather you believe in it or not, it's more like the vision you have for your business. If you don't understand that this is a strong priority and make everything happen for it, then I wouldn't invest in your business. And another thing I would add, because I think it's great that we now have more and more VCs as Blisce and VCs that are B Corp and that really embed those values. It's because the measure of success needs to change as well. So it's not only measuring the success of a company through their revenue or their profit or their market share, but it's really measuring the success of a company, meaning like what do you leave behind you? What's the impact you have on the society? How do you handle your employees? How do you handle your suppliers? Which kind of, are you a good company or not? And I think this needs to be the next measure of success, so that we stop measuring companies only through one dimension, but that we really add several dimensions and can have a complete assessment of the success of a company.
Yeah.
And this will force people to change and think differently.
I mean, just picking up on your last point, we could have a whole discussion, the four of us, around just how we measure the impact and the business benefit, right? So I want to come back to it if we have time, but I really appreciate what you said. Zah, I want to get you in on this because, you are tapping into industry that spends billions and billions of dollars on advertising. You're saying, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this. How do you get people to see this as not a nice to do and this, this good tech thing that will take, the money and direct it in the right spot? How do you get people to buy into this version of it and believe that your offering is as good as another offering that might have no societal benefit attached to it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And good thing for us, we're fortunate to have powerful people backing us. They are consumers, especially here in North America and in the US. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in May, July, especially after the murder of George Floyd, you started having this hashtag Stop Hate for Profit in the US. And basically that was a people-based movement, right? To Lucie's point, that was not a vertical movement. That was a totally horizontal movement of online users saying, you know what? It's crazy that these brands are spending tons of dollars on Facebook, on Twitter, and forms, don't do enough to stop, hate speech. And you had this movement of ad boycott from big brands, major brands like Starbucks, Verizon, Unilever, or even last week in France, you had Decathlon, the sports retail brand. They decided to stop advertising on CNews, which is basically a French Bloomberg, if you will, or French CNN. So you really have these brands who totally get that consumers are expecting more from their advertising dollars and saying, if you spend this money without considering that you're accountable for the impact that your advertising dollars are making to society, and because there is some controversy with this CNews TV channel around some of the TV programs, well, that doesn't work for us. So that doesn't work for our clients, and that doesn't work for us as an advertiser. So it's very interesting to see that this is not a fad. This is something that started very strongly before the summer, and even in Europe and in France in particular, you start having this movement as well. But I just would like to come back to what Lucie and Alexandre said just earlier. I could not agree more with them. But because we're investors and entrepreneurs, the commonality that we have is we take risks, right? We're risking our business or our money because we believe in something. But we don't take risk recklessly. We need to also de-risk our business or to de-risk our investment. And today, the major risk that you're facing is no longer technology or competition or even the legal environment. Now it's the social perception and the social acceptation of what you're doing. And this is totally new kind of risk that it's very hard to grasp and very hard to tackle. And if you, as an entrepreneur and as an investor, if you're saying, well, I'll do that later, let's start, building the foundations of a business and we'll figure it out, that won't work, because you are totally neglecting a major risk factor that, won't be appealing to investors and won't be appealing to your customers as well, because both of them would walk away from you, overnight, because you're failing on, providing and delivering this positive impact to society.
Right. So let me ask. That's terrific. So let me ask all of you a more practical question, just building up the last point that Zara made. So we sort of established we've all drunk the Kool-Aid. So we all believe that if you look at what's happening, as you said, Alexandre, like Darwinian theory, and Lucie, you made this point as well. If you don't get with what's happening in the world today, if you don't understand the expectations of various stakeholders, you are going to lose out. And part of thinking about your business and creating societal benefit is critical to that. So the practical question I have for you all is, so now if you're a French entrepreneur and you're coming to North America and your business doesn't have purpose, Tech4Good built at the core of it, what suggestions would you have? What advice would you have to help them think about how you could start to embed some of the societal benefit right into the business? It doesn't have to sit at the core, but it's part of how you do business. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Alexandre, you saw your hand go up. So why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, because we have built something at Epic called the Epic Pledge. And that's something, because we got this question from some people saying, maybe my business is not as virtuous as Too Good to Go, but still I want to showcase that I'm not only doing this to make money, and I will use that potential success for others. And that's what we build the Epic Pledge. And the Epic Pledge basically is you are able to pledge a slice of your shares, whatever. It could be 1%, could be 20, 10, 5, 2%. You decide whatever you want to give away. The day you will cash out, it could be just going public, it could be selling the business, it could be a pure cash out. And it's interesting because we see hundreds of entrepreneurs joining us, and it's part of now also because they know they will be working harder than anything else. So for them, it's also important to connect this with something positive. So they understand that even if they work hard, when they will be successful, a slice of it will go to social good. And that's something we have been doing with many entrepreneurs, French entrepreneurs, but also American entrepreneurs, or just different entrepreneurs across the world. So that's interesting. And we have been building the same for investors, because we said it's great that entrepreneurs can do it, but investors can do the same. So we have also partners at venture funds in the US or in Europe, pledging a size that could be on their management fees or on their carried interest. So that's solutions. And back to what we said earlier, you have to provide solutions if you want people using it. So it's not only just saying, guys, trying to do something. If you don't provide something, it's hard because we have no time. We have a lot of pressure, a ton of competition everywhere. So it's important to give easy solution to have people just joining the movement, because it is a movement.
I love that suggestion, because the pledge is something that anybody can do, and it shows intent, and then you have to make good on it. But it allows you, to your point, if you're not sure how to embed Tech4Good's social purpose into your core business, it can't be a little throwaway. So this is a way to do that. Other thoughts, Lucie, Zara, do you have other thoughts on just pieces of practical advice for the entrepreneur who says, it's not core to my business, but I'd love to think about how to do more of it?
Yeah, I would say use your people and your team. I think a lot of us now, we want to wake up every day for something that makes sense, and it's more and more people like this. So it's not because you don't see it as the CEO or at the top of the company, because you grew your whole business, and you of course become brainwashed and close-minded of like what you've been doing for the last years, and actually bringing some fresh eyes to it, bringing the younger generation as well to it. I think that helps a lot to see a different side of how your business could evolve and design a bit of a stronger mission and a stronger objective to still be here in 10 or 20 years. So for me, bringing the team into that and making sure that you can build a passionate team and a mission for which they want to wake up every day, that's going to help you to naturally embrace the change and the needs for something different.
That's great. Is there any practical advice to embed it more, to lean into it more for French tech entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that the Epic Pledge is a universal tool that, to your point, it could be used by any entrepreneur or any investor. And I would also subscribe to Lucie's point around engaging with your community. So it's not only your team, but it's also your stakeholders. And it's about aligning our vision. And for instance, if you're raising funds, you may want to raise funds from investors who share the same values. And if you're looking for clients or business partners, same thing. If you are aligned, it will be easier to make business because you share the same purpose. So, and it's very interesting in the advertising industry, for instance, it's a very B2B thing. You have Havas, which is the fourth largest advertising group in the world. They have in France implemented this new framework that they send to online publishers like Verizon Media and big online publishers to say, hey, you need to fill in this form that demonstrates that you're creating positive impact, because otherwise our advertising clients, they won't spend their money on your online websites or on your mobile apps. So it's anyways, you cannot avoid it. It's happening, even if end users don't necessarily see it, but everybody in the business industry is actually seeing this. And this is why you no longer have the former paradigm back 20 years ago where it was all about, oh, you need to build an outstanding product or solution and that everybody will love. And from product, we moved on to platforms like Facebook, like Google, etc. Today, it's about ecosystems. It's about communities. It's about shared values, as you mentioned earlier. And if you belong to this kind of community, you no longer need to have social good embedded at the core of your business, to your point. But you're part of a community that is pushing towards the same direction and with the same goal and the same ambition to fix this broken world.
That's great. I love that last point too, because thinking about there is a community and you're part of an ecosystem, so tapping into it and learning from others is great. We've got a few more minutes. I want to ask again sort of a practical question, which is, are there any major watch outs from other lessons that you learned, whether you're a French entrepreneur coming to North America or vice versa, you're in North America and you're going to Europe? Are there any major things that you've either learned the hard way, or you would say to an entrepreneur, if you're going to lean into tech for good, lean into societal, benefit, just make sure you don't do this? Is there any watch outs you would say to the people listening today?
I would say it's the same everywhere. It's supply and demand. So it's if you don't think you know everything, even if you're very successful somewhere. I think we have all of us have learned the hard way at some point in the past. We all have scars everywhere. Just it's very hard to be an entrepreneur. It's very also it's many great things, but it comes also with a lot of pain. So, but it's not the reason why you shouldn't start and shouldn't do the work. And it's interesting because Zara just has done just the France to Canada, and Lucie is doing just the France to the US. I think it's very interesting to see for them what will be the next the next future. The supply and demand. Whatever you do, try to understand that if you don't have clients, you will suffer. And that's sometimes we think that's the US is barely the same as Europe is. Not the case, as we know. But it's important to repeat it. So trying to understand the client first, and after you can build something, and it could be something different that you have in Europe. Lucie, you are just experiencing it now. So
yeah, I would say two things, and keeping it short, but I think stay true to who we are, to who you are. So never do something that feels wrong. I think that's really important across the whole company, actually. And then on the other side, but be ready for surprises and be ready to change when needed. Don't break what's working. So try and do the same. But if suddenly it's not working anymore in the US as it's working in Europe, then be ready to take turns and to change what you're doing. Always staying true to your values and your vision and your mission. But it's completely fine as well that sometimes something that works somewhere doesn't work everywhere. That's part of being an entrepreneur as well, right?
For sure. And Zara, I don't want to leave you out. We've got 30 seconds. Any watch outs?
I'll be short. I'll be short with a proverb. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So don't be too pushy on people who don't relate to what you're trying to do. Don't waste your time. Just move on. Find people who share the same vision and the same values, and the others will follow. Don't worry. But don't waste your time on trying to convince people who are not there yet.
Okay.
I want to thank all of you. I love doing these panels because, it's inspiring to hear from entrepreneurs who are making the world a better place, and they're doing it in a way that is sustainable and profitable. And that is the future. And I know that I've drunk the Kool-Aid, and all of you have too, but I hope for the people who are listening, you will appreciate the words, the insight, the wisdom from Alexandre, Lucie, and Njara, because this is the future, and Tech4Good is a real thing. And it's not a nice to do, it's a need to do. And so I hope you've gained something from this. I want to thank our panelists for a wonderful session, and thank everyone who took part in this session. And I wish you all a great rest of the conference, and be well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Merci.